and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 160, Surprises from the Learning Edge. Well, last week's episode certainly prompted a flurry of questions and comments, so this week I'm continuing the theme. Firstly, especially for we introverts, I sincerely doubt that we'd be exploring our learning edges just for the hell of it. I found that the catalyst for exploration begins with clarity of purpose, intention, and aspirations. So that's where we'll start with this particular episode. There's a saying often misattributed to Lewis Carroll, which is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. Interestingly, though, this quote does not actually appear in any of Carroll's works. The quote is a paraphrase of a conversation between Alice and the Cheshire Cat in Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. I wonder just how many of you loved losing yourself in the fantastical magic of Alice in Wonderland and other remarkable children's books. Anyway, in the scene that this misquote comes from, Alice asks the Cheshire Cat which road she should take, to which the cat replies, "That depends a good deal on where you want to get to." Alice admits that she doesn't much care where she goes, to which the cat responds with the now famous quote, "Then it doesn't matter which way you go." There is real wisdom in the passage and in the cat's response, in that getting busy, or at least appearing busy, may feel like you're making progress, but to what end? And I know I don't have the time or energy for random meanderings, and frankly, does anyone? So the context of this quote is one of direction and purpose, which is very much aligned with my comments at the start of the episode. Without a clear goal or destination in mind, any path will suffice. However, this lack of direction can also lead to a sense of aimlessness and therefore the resultant lack of fulfillment. As in previous episodes, fulfillment and flourishing are glorious stablemates. And as per the definitions of both, just like Alice when she sets off to find the white rabbit and return home, our journeys are not without challenges. Alice eventually realises the importance of having a clear direction and purpose, and so must we if we're to make progress whilst achieving a greater sense of self-awareness and understanding. So we must first start with where do we want to be and why. This is not just about reaching a certain position in an organisation, having an impressive job title, or earning squillions of pounds in my book. This is about daring to dream about our whole life, the be, the do, and the have. I've previously had a lot of trouble dreaming in any concrete way. Sounds like quite a paradox when I put it that way, but dreaming about a brighter future because it always felt just too far out of reach. And yet I know the power of thoughts become things, and have shared with you before that as a certified trainer of Mike Dooley's Infinite Possibilities work, the results I've had with clients are just phenomenal. So why was it so difficult for me? Well, a few reasons spring to mind. My limiting beliefs, fueled by the enormity of the bias towards the extrovert ideal, and my lived experience. And many of you may still be caught in that feeling of being less than your counterparts, having endured years and decades of being compared to your more extroverted colleagues. So many of my clients, although apparently secure in themselves and their introversion, still find they get caught in comparisonitis, especially when opportunities are denied them. That, of course, is likely to trigger their inner critic. Yet we know that introverts have their own set of strengths that are just as valuable as those possessed and demonstrated by extroverts. it comes back to really owning our strengths and being able to articulate and demonstrate them positively. After all, we're likely to play down our achievements and hope that our work speaks for itself. In today's busy world, however, that's probably a hope too far. So being able to speak about and demonstrate our strengths with grace and ease is something of a necessary truth. As mentioned in last week's episode, conducting a bit of an audit so that you know what you're good at will help you recognise what will really help you move towards the future you desire. In fact, now might be a good time to loop back and listen to episode 135, Awakening Your Aspirations. In it, I talk about my reluctance to engage with traditional goal setting and how I need to start with my aspirations. And so it may be for you. So consider, how do you want your life to be? What will be happening in your ideal day? Who is around you as support and as companions? When do you want this to be happening? How will you be feeling on a regular basis? There's no right and wrong answers here, as there is no right way to be successful, despite what some of the gurus and career coaches might tell us. Success looks different for everyone, and what works for one person is highly unlikely to work for another. But why is your vision of the future so important? There are 4 big reasons that I can see straight off. Number 1, it helps you make decisions that align with your values and priorities. As an introvert, you're likely to be more introspective and reflective, and so probably prefer to spend time alone thinking things through. By having a vision of the future that reflects your values and priorities, you can make decisions that are more likely to bring you fulfillment and happiness. Number 2, it gives you a sense of purpose and direction. Introverts may sometimes feel overwhelmed by the demands of the external world, which can be loud, chaotic, and unpredictable. By having a clear vision of the future, you can feel more grounded and centred, knowing that you have a sense of purpose and direction that is independent of external circumstances. Number 3, it allows you to communicate your goals and aspirations more effectively. We introverts may not always feel comfortable sharing our thoughts and feelings with others. However, having this clear vision means that when you communicate your goals and aspirations, you will also be building stronger relationships that help you achieve your objectives more efficiently. And number 4, it helps you manage your energy levels. Yes, we're more sensitive to external stimuli and therefore may need that time alone to recharge our batteries. But that clear vision of the future means we can structure our lives in a way that supports our energy levels, making sure that we have enough time for rest, relaxation, and reflection. Now, once we have some clarity about our vision, we can really understand how we need to grow and develop in order to manifest it. And by manifest, I don't mean of the cosmic ordering kind, where we tell the universe what we want and then sit back and wait for it to be delivered through Deliveroo. I mean manifest through actionable plans aligned with where we want to be. They involve work and wobbles and challenges, exactly as we'd expect when choosing to flourish. Remember Lin Suet's definition? It includes through the peaks and valleys of life. To that end, and for fun, I thought we might take some of Alice's encounters as she ventures through Wonderland to see how they apply to us as we rise up to meet our learning edge. After all, they apparently represent various aspects of society, culture, and/or the human condition. Let's see what we can make of them. Firstly, falling down the rabbit hole. Alice falls down a rabbit hole which represents a journey into the unknown and a departure from the familiar world. Who hasn't had a few forays into random rabbit holes? The trouble is, we often see them as negative, as a distraction. But don't they spectacularly describe life as we make our way from the competency zone into our learning edge? We don't know what's there, and the ambitious amongst us are drawn to that learning edge like moths to a flame, knowing just how important it is for our growth and development. So don't avoid all the rabbit holes in your learning edge. They may just take you where you want to go. But you won't know until you do a bit of gentle exploration. The next significant moment is when Alice meets the Cheshire Cat. It's this mischievous, enigmatic creature who helps Alice to see that things are not always as they appear. What an amazing thing this Cheshire Cat does by encouraging Alice to question her assumptions and look beyond surface appearances. We could all learn from that in our biased world and help others to do the same. After all, we know that introverted doesn't automatically mean shy, socially anxious, boring, unambitious or people haters, and yet the myths continue, often unchallenged. We have the power to stop our race up the fantasy ladder, which just triggers our doubt in ourselves. Let's catch ourselves in the moment and return instead to the facts of the situation. Stay rational and stop catastrophizing. I have to say I'm rather enjoying this exploration through the lens of Alice in Wonderland. The next significance comes through drinking the potion and eating the cake. Alice drinks a potion which makes her shrink and then eats a cake which makes her grow. Whilst this represents the idea of transformation and the fluidity of identity, it also reminds me of how often we take the crumbs or potion dished out as feedback from managers, etc., and as a result, we bend ourselves out of shape to fit in and get on in our biased society. Exploring our learning edge will mean experimenting with previously untried ideas and behaviours, but they are always coming from a place of congruence and are aligned with where we want to be headed. Next, how about the Queen of Hearts croquet game? Alice plays croquet with the Queen of Hearts, who is an authoritarian and irrational figure. The game can be interpreted as a representation of society and power dynamics. We know only too well the requirement to navigate the rules and constraints of our situations in order to achieve success. That includes mindfully working around the bias towards the extrovert ideal that's being played out in all aspects of society, work, education, and families. And to many of us, it feels like the extroverts have the power. How easy it is to forget just how many well-respected leaders are introverts. So the reality is you make the rules in your life, and if other people have power over you, ask yourself how you've been complicit in that. Finally, what about the Mad Hatter's Tea Party? Just about every meeting I think I've ever attended. Alice attends a tea party hosted by the Mad Hatter, who is a whimsical and unconventional character. The tea party represents the idea of breaking free from social norms and conventions and embracing individuality. Yes, yes, 1,000,000 times yes. We're not weird, we're wired differently, and I'm happy to be my own kind of weird. Own your introversion, play to your strengths, hold your boundaries high. Be your own kind of unconventional. Be the rebel, be sassy, and above all, be uncompromisingly you. Now, the big question seems to me to be how, when rising to face our learning edge in the service of reaching our desired outcomes, how do we anticipate and successfully navigate these and similar changes? Whilst there is no one answer to this, and it must be established individually, it's the work we do together in the Unfulfilled to Flourishing programme. the most important thing, is that we frame these things as part of the journey to our desired destination, not as a reason to stop, not as a cause to about turn, and not to catastrophize. These parts of our journey are as necessary as our first few faltering steps as toddlers, our first admonishment from a significant caregiver, and as necessary as our first broken heart romantically. They are all life events that we learn from. Just like Alice's adventures in Wonderland, we can approach life as being about the power of the imagination and the potential for personal growth and transformation. We can question our assumptions, embrace our creativity and individuality. Or we can use introversion as an excuse and hide away from the world. I know which I am doing. After all, life is short. So have fun exploring your learning edge and let me know which book your lessons remind you of. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.